All right, let's get to the episode.
All
So,
right.
I rarely say this, but welcome to the Vaguely Problematic podcast, or as it shall be known from this point forward, the All Elon All the Time podcast, because I looked and we've talked about him literally every single week. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Are you okay with that? What do you have to say about that?
Oh, I'm totally okay with that. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we're super
When I listen
interested in
to
it, but I'm
yeah,
not sure everybody else is.
I don't know. When I listen to All In Pod, when they start talking about like the VC stuff or whatever, my eyes just glaze over, or I'll just skip it. But when they're talking about the Elon stuff, I think that's when I'm the most interested. So
Well, this week, it feels a little bit more important than most weeks. Elon, he's lost some support. So what happened was he banned the Elon Jet account that tracks his private jet's location because there was an incident where a stalker tracked a car that his child was in, and this really freaked out Elon, and he banned people on the basis of doxing real-time location. This included not just Elon Jet, but included a bunch of journalists who were linking to Mastodon sites that had the tracker, or the details are not that important. The point is that he banned a bunch of accounts that were tracking the real-time location of his private jet. Many people pointed out that this perhaps is very inconsistent with his previous statements that he believes in free speech, or even absolute free speech, or if not absolute, legal limits of speech should be the model for Twitter. Well, when I say banned, I shouldn't say banned. He was discussing a 1 week suspension. That's way more accurate. So, yeah, now we are in the fallout. That's been pretty recent. All the major people in this space have weighed in. Some of the people who are normally on Team Elon have said that they do not agree with this. This is contrary to his previous claims that he's pro free speech. Now when it affects him personally, of course, things may be different. That is sort of the classic dilemma. That is the classic free speech problem, right? It's only when it's hard to support free speech that your support matters. When it's easy to support, then it didn't need your support in the first place. So, what are your thoughts on this?
well, what kind of people did you have in mind when you were saying the people that were formerly on Team Elon
Well,
have
Barry Weiss.
yeah.
Barry
Okay.
Weiss was given Twitter files, and she says she's squarely against this move
Yeah.
to suspend people. There's some other people, just some conservatives on Twitter that I saw. Nobody too notable.
Yeah, he definitely still has some support, like from
Well, he
like
has
Sachs, for
plenty. He
example.
has plenty
Yeah.
of support, and even I still support him. But I do not agree with the way this played out.
I am undecided on this right now. I would say, let's see, if I had to pick, I would say I'm leaning in his favor. I'm basically against doxing.
So the first thing that let's go through some of the notable conclusions, and these are the debate points that you'll hear, the talking points that you'll hear if you go on Twitter and argue about this topic with anybody. The first point is the hypocrisy of the left, right? Because the left is now screaming about free speech when they had nothing to say about it when it was conservatives getting banned off Twitter for speech essentially. And now they're saying, "Well, it's so important, blah 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 blah." Okay. So that's funny. They had nothing to say then, but now that they're getting banned, now they kind of they know what it feels like now. The other
Yeah,
talking point you'll hear,
yeah, and they were previously saying, yeah, private company, blah blah
right, right, right. They were previously saying, start your own Twitter. I'm like, okay, how about I just buy yours? They don't like that though. Now they're complaining, just like conservatives are complaining about the speech policies before. None of them are saying start your own Twitter anymore because the start your own Twitter means going to Mastodon. We all know Mastodon sucks. So they're
blah.
not saying that. However, they
Yeah,
are pointing out what they would say in rebuttal is that the right is being hypocritical and that they're okay with banning speech now. And in fairness to them, I am seeing some fairly intellectually dishonest people on the right. Big one, I would say, is Ian Miles Chung, he's just I don't hate him, but he is kind of just a clout chaser, and he's just on Twitter all the time, and he's basically here to suck Elon's cock. Every single time Elon tweets something, Ian Miles Chung is here to say, "Elon, you're a genius," and he's gotten the ear. And hey, in fairness, I would love to have the ear of Elon Musk because Elon
yeah,
responds to him all the time.
yeah. It's yeah.
This is just
It's,
some guy in Singapore
it's
who
weird.
lives in like a
Weird.
one-bedroom apartment who's on Twitter all day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think that's more revealing of Elon, actually.
So, of course, he agrees with it. And he used the line, it's Elon's company. He can do what he wants with it. This was the exact thing that we hated when the left said that 1 year ago. They said, well, it's Jack Dorsey's company. It's Twitter can do what they want. It's a private company. No, there are principles here. Are you not the public square? What happened to this is the public square? There is a moral good in protecting free speech on that public square, and this matters. It's not just you can do whatever you want because you own it. If we felt that way when the left owned Twitter, then we have to still feel that way when Elon owns Twitter. He can't just do whatever he wants with it.
Yeah, yeah, I
Now,
totally
do
agree.
I agree that he can do this or that? Well, we'll take that on a case by case basis. But to just Ian Miles Chung, just in his cock slurping ways, he just said Elon can do whatever he wants with it. Well, what if he just banned everybody who voted Democrat? Would you agree with that? What if he banned everybody who said a bad word about Tesla? Would you agree with that? Probably Ian Miles Chung would, but I wouldn't. And other people who, try to maintain consistent principles like Barry Weiss, they disagree with this too. They just think, hey, this is inconsistent. I do not agree with the way this has happened. And I agree. I think it's been disorganized and incoherent. Like, what is the policy? When Elon first took over, he said the Elon jet was okay, right? And then now it's different. And I understand what the difference is. Here's what the difference is. The difference is that some crazy person tracked down his child and endangered that child. Jumped on the hood and stuff. He was wearing a black Antifa mask, something, something. That's scary. I understand that. It was my family being threatened. My quote unquote principles would be severely tested as well. And I probably would side on the side with my family. I would rather keep my family safe than maintain some adherence to ideological principles that I stated 3 months ago. That's a very human reaction. However, when one person, this is the problem with concentration of power. When one person is controlling everything and just doing everything ad hoc, it allows for that one person to apply things in a very disorganized, incoherent way. And unfortunately, I think that's what's happening right now with the way Elon's running Twitter. It's just putting out this fire, putting out this fire, making a call here, making a call here. It's very ad hoc, and there's no consistent adherence. First of all, nobody's laying out the principles and the policies clearly, and then there's nobody adhering to such policies clearly. And I think it's obvious that one person can't do all of it. You need a more structured approach to this. And in fairness to Elon, he just bought it. So I'm very hopeful that he will put in place something like a review council or something, a council of people from across the political spectrum, and then they decide based on written rules, right? So it's not just somebody freaking out because their child was in danger and then applying policy based on that. So while I totally understand where Elon's coming from, because the safety of my family is way more important than just, policies or whatever. And he says this is a safety issue. It's clearly a safety issue. And I would agree, it is a safety issue. But the left claims that, misgendering people is a safety issue, right? They claim that calling a man creates an environment where some MAGA hat crazy person will go punch him in the face or something. Now, okay, we don't agree with that claim. We think that it is a pretty weak claim. However, it is subjective. It's just so is it just going to be based on who owns it? Which claims are lent more credence? They own the company. They write the terms of service. They define what safety means. Now that Elon owns
Yeah,
the company, he defines what safety means, and that's not quite good enough for me.
but ironically, they don't. The left doesn't seem to think that doxing is a safety issue.
No, they don't. Of course, of course. But then,
Which I agree with what you said. It is subjective, but yeah, I'm gonna fall on the side of doxing being a bigger problem.
I would too. I would agree that I think that doxing could actually lead to harm. Whereas I think that me calling you a man or a woman, even though you don't like what I say, that's not going to lead to harm.
Or even just criticism, right? If you take the left's point of view, I mean, even like Yoel Roth was being criticized by the right? And then the left is saying that, oh, well, now he's got to, well, not the left is saying, but I think it turns out he had to move or something because he's getting
Right, 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 right.
threats. But then you take that argument to the extreme, you can't even criticize somebody
Right.
because that would be a safety issue.
So while it's yeah, sure, okay, but it's subjective, right? So that's why when Elon said the model will be whatever's legal speech in that jurisdiction will be how Twitter's model. That makes sense to me because there's not a subjective element now. It's more objective because you have the Supreme Court, you have the whole court system deciding what's legal, what's not. That feels better.
Yeah.
And here's another aside I'll make. Elon has been so much more gracious to these people than they were to us. Because number one, he's not banning them outright. And number two, he allows them, he hears them out, right? They can talk to him, he'll talk back. He will even take on board their criticism. He will listen to them. And again, they are not banned permanently. Most what's going to happen is they have like a 7-day suspension. So he's been
Yeah.
more generous to them than they have to him. And while I do agree that doxing is a little bit different than, oh, your feelings were hurt because I called you a man. How are you unsafe? I don't think you're unsafe, but they thought they would be unsafe. So this is now just a matter of opinion. Here's my novel approach to this, my novel angle to this, and I don't think anybody else has, as far as
Wait,
I've
wait, wait,
seen.
wait, wait.
What?
Yeah, before you get into your novel thing, I just want to point out a few things. First of all, regarding transparency, I heard Sachs talk about this in the latest All In pod today about, how Elon is being more transparent about it. But actually, I don't, unless they're lying, that doesn't seem necessarily to be the case to me because I saw at least there was some prominent leftist dude who was saying that I got banned and I don't even know what the tweet was that got me banned. That suggests to me that there's definite room for improvement on the transparency
I think
side.
yes, but that has more to do, I believe, with just the size of Twitter, how many people it has to interact with. He will stand up and talk to people about the issue broadly, right?
Right, right. He was in that spaces
Right. So that
talking with
it's kind of a
probably it was
catch.
like
It's kind of a catch-all, an umbrella. I will address this class of suspension that's happening now, whereas Twitter of old didn't do that. They didn't even give you that.
right, right,
Sargon was just banned, and that's it.
right.
And 5 years
Okay,
later, I don't think they said a word about it.
right.
So
Yeah, definitely. It is most likely, yeah, what we have right now is an improvement on the transparency side. But okay, another side kind of point I want to kind of bring up is Elon being a little disingenuous about sort of the doxing and the effects because he wrote to Barry Weiss on Twitter. He said, "What should the consequence of doxing someone's real-time exact location be? Assume your child is at that location as mine was." So is he kind of conflating or mixing some things up here? Because I thought in his other tweet, the Antifa dude or whatever, that the guy wearing the black mask was on the car that his kid was in, but he was not there. I don't see what the location of the car was not being, unless I'm missing something. The location of the
maybe it
car was
was
not being
yeah.
doxed.
Maybe it was just right outside the airport or something. Where like the private jet cars leave, right?
That could be, but I wish he really could clarify that a bit because
Right.
that point to me, if without those details, to me it sounds like he's being kind of disingenuous there, or
Right.
I
Maybe
don't know.
he's just like relating
He's
these two things that are not really related.
Yeah, he's making it sound more serious than it actually was.
Well, I
I mean,
I wouldn't
this
say
is
he's
still
making it sound more serious because I do think that someone jumping our kid's car feels very serious.
well, of course, that is serious, but whether that was caused by the doxing, that connection is
Right.
not clear to me.
He
Of
hasn't
course,
presented enough evidence to make that connection. So my novel approach this to create sort of a coherent policy that will satisfy Elon's need for safety, and I think satisfy it's not even just a right issue. I don't think people on the left want to be doxxed either. So we want to have guardrails against doxing because this is an important aspect of the internet, right? And it's kind of new. This is like a new legal thing, and existing laws are not necessarily well equipped to address the newness of the internet and the newness of doxing. However, we do want to adhere, we do want a free speech platform that treats people equally and fairly. But we have this niggling problem, which is that doxing is not illegal technically, right? There is no law on the books. It's not like one of the typical illegal types of speech like defamation or incitement to violence. It's not one of those. So by that principle, it should be allowed on Twitter. However, here's the way I would change Twitter's approach to free speech. And again, I don't think this Elon should apply these rules. I think he should put in place some sort of council or some organized body to apply them. He should specify that what Twitter is trying to protect is political speech, speech that has to do with opinions. Just like spam is not illegal in any court of law in the nation. It's just like some asshole like typing stuff repeatedly. There's no way anyone's gonna be put in jail for that. However, every single platform bans it. And nobody says anything because everybody recognizes that this is just a person doing something pointless and it's not really something that we need to protect. Because when the founding fathers wrote the First Amendment, they were not trying to protect some guy spamming, and they were not trying to protect an Elon jet, right? They were not trying to protect doxing. They were trying to protect people expressing a political opinion that the government does not like.
Yeah.
Because those are the opinions that need the most protecting. Because now, or an opinion against a powerful person. If you say something like, "I think Bill Gates is whatever," I don't know, he's a bad person. You don't want a world where a powerful person like that can silence everybody else because he owns something or because he's, can intimidate you or whatever the case may be. That's what free speech is trying to protect. That's what the First Amendment is there for. It's not there to protect doxing. And nobody has really mentioned this core intent of free. They just are just looking at sort of the law of free speech. They look at what's illegal currently, incitement to violence, defamation, and this isn't in one of those buckets. Therefore, this must be free, and this must be treated the same as somebody expressing a political opinion that the government or powerful people do not like. And they're not in the same buckets. They're not the same sort of importance. Those things are of paramount importance. Doxing is of very minimal importance. Now, there may be some contexts where doxing should be allowed or protected. Like if somebody's reporting on the president, and like the president shouldn't be able to be secretive, right? And maybe you say the president's in this country or something like that, right?
Or you could imagine doxing a criminal.
Sure. Yeah. Right. So I'm not so sure of there could be contexts where this doxing should be protected. However, it's not political speech.
Right.
Because political speech should be protected, I would say 100% of the time. Even if we're in wartime and you say something like, "I think our government is doing bad things, and I think our government is wrong for going to war," I think it should still be protected. And our government has not always been good about that. There were sedition acts in this country's history. World War II, you didn't necessarily have free speech. Now, in certain situations, if you're saying stuff that could, this is actually kind of similar. Like there were laws during World War II where you couldn't say stuff that might reveal something about troop positions, right? Because they would put people in actual harm. So, okay, that makes sense. But I would never want a law where you could be punished for saying, "I disagree with the war that the United States is conducting." But doxing just doesn't fall under that bucket. So I just think if we could just assign it into a lower tier of protection, Elon and Twitter could have a coherent, logical, and sensible policy that can ban a lot of doxing like this, that he feels strongly about, but also be consistent and say, "Well, I'll protect political speech," which is what's important, because and you could argue that that's what the Hunter Biden release was, right? It was somebody releasing information essentially implying that the president and his son are corrupt politicians and they don't deserve your vote. That is political speech. And that type of speech deserves far more deference than just somebody doxing. Twitter should model itself on this notion that political speech should be protected. The only restrictions on it should be, whatever are legal restrictions. Everything else is more fair game. I'm not going to say total fair game, but you put it in deprioritized buckets, lesser buckets, where, okay, now spam can be banned. Doxing can be banned.
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you think there would be people on the left that would argue with you that in this case, this doxing is somehow political speech? Because if you think about it, right, why actually is it so important to them that Elon's private jet location be, known to as many people as possible. It's I actually think their motive is it's nefarious,
I
right?
agree.
Like
I think their motive, either consciously or subconsciously, is to intimidate him.
yeah,
It's to
and
let
to
him know that it doesn't matter how rich you are, you're touchable, you know?
yeah, and also to increase the chances of something bad happening.
I
I think
I don't know that I would go that far, but I think intimidation is certainly a motive.
mhm.
You know, let
So
him know that he's not untouchable.
right, but you still think that it is
That's not
categorically
political though.
not
Intimidation is not a political statement.
okay.
A political statement is saying something like, Elon, you're dumb, you're bad for Twitter, you're a fascist, you're bad for America, I don't like you, you're a bad businessman, you're corrupt. Those are,
Mhm.
that's speech that should be protected.
I got a report that Sachs actually did mention this exact idea, although he didn't emphasize it in quite the same way that you did. He did talk explicitly about political speech and the
Okay,
importance of
well,
that. Yeah,
Sachs is a
but he
smart
didn't.
guy, so of course he would agree with me.
Yeah,
I didn't listen to that all in honest, so I didn't steal it from him.
right, right. Well, it just came out today, I think.
Oh, so I think that's the way for Elon to explain this coherently and justify this suspension while still maintaining that he is a adherent to free speech principles because it's not the same type of speech. It's not political. It's not as important to protect, right? The goal of political speech is to keep people who are in power in check, to hold them to account. What is the goal of spamming? What is the goal of doxing? It's not so noble. It's not so important, right?
Right, right.
It's really not. It's also clear that Elon needs to put some people in place. It can't just be him. He runs four companies. He can't be making these policies as he goes along and enforcing them too. Stuff like this is going to happen. And unfortunately, what this does is it opens up lines of attack for the left. They can rightfully say, well, this is kind of inconsistent, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you cannot leave these lines open for attack. But that's what's gonna keep happening if he is so ad hoc about this.
You know, on the other hand, I would say so. You know, Elon basically just bought Twitter, and there's just been fire after fire after fire, right? But don't you think that the rate of these fires will, in fact, slow down dramatically?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Like for me, this doxing seems like it's you know it's a big issue,
I
and
think
then
that
now,
as long as he is the one lightning rod, then these fires won't abide. Everything seems more important because all the questions funnel up to him, and then now it becomes an issue. It's a story about the richest man on earth who just bought Twitter, as opposed to just some person said something, they were banned or suspended, and Twitter, some amorphous organization handed down a judgment. That's much less of a story. It's much less of a fire. So him maintaining his position is making the fire greater than it would have been. So he just needs to put people in place, put good people, impartial people who have a good reputation, like Barry Weiss on a council, like people on the left, like Kyle Kulinski. Obviously, it should be a balanced group of people, and they can sort of make these decisions with after he's laid down clearly what the rules are, and then just like a court, they can interpret the rules and apply them. It can't be him. It just nobody can just be the king of Twitter. You're going to fuck up. You're going to do things emotionally, hastily, and it's going to contradict something you said previously. It's going to happen.